Joining us now is Director of Media Monitoring Africa, William Bird, to talk about developments here at the SABC. And of course, that interview that we just had with the former board members, Kanyisile Kwayama and Krish Naidu, over the SIU report. One of the things that Mr. Naidu was saying that he actually wishes, because the report was leaked, that somebody like the MMA, Media Monitoring Africa, would actually use the law to compel not only the president to release the report, but perhaps even for us to get a sense of who may have read the report and why.
So look, I'm not sure about if we'll ever find out who actually leaked it, and the timing of this is quite curious. But I think certainly from a principled point of view, we would support the idea that the full report is made public, and that any other related documentation is also made public, because it's only through, you know, transparency that you're going to get some kinds of answers. But as I understand it, as they just said, it's before the courts now, and usually, unless there's some kind of application made to keep those documents confidential, they will be made public anyway. And I imagine that the minutes and all related other things like the scoring and those things will all be made public as part of that.
But this is what they're saying, that the fact that it has not been released continues to cast a shadow over their integrity, besmirches their character. So, and you're saying the timing is quite curious. What do you think would be the rationale behind somebody leaking the report? To what end would it be? Is it exactly that?
I'm not sure actually, and maybe it's backfired on whoever's intended to do this, because I think that there's an idea that the SABC is being a little bit too independent these days, and there certainly seems to be a notion to try and strangle the SABC into compliance by starving them of the much needed bailout that they so desperately need. And I think all of these things are probably intertwined and linked to that, because, you know, there's a number of other SIU investigations that have taken place over the last 10 years. We haven't seen much action on those. So suddenly this one gets leaked. All of those other ones, you know, sometimes bits and pieces of them. This one is out in the public domain.
So obviously that is quite curious. Obviously the bailout, the proviso has been that the SABC has to be accountable for every cent given to it, and measures have to be in place. But you're using the term to starve out. And do you see it as being deliberate? Is there something to be gained from the delay in giving the SABC money?
There's a huge amount to be gained by starving the SABC of cash. The government has known about this for well over a year. They've had every opportunity to step in and provide it. To the best of my knowledge, the SABC has provided the necessary strategy documents. I've seen them. They were presented before Parliament. They've complied with the other various auditing things as far as I'm aware. I'm not sure. So when government says they haven't complied, they must tell us what they haven't complied with actually, so we can do some kind of assessment. Because what is clear to us outside the SABC is that the SABC seems to be taking action on irregular appointments. They had 2 inquiries, one into sexual harassment and one into editorial interference, and action's been taken on those. So you've got a public institution that's acting against corruption, that's saying we can't go into a contract because it's beyond our economic means. And yet they seem to be penalised by not getting the bailout. Yet every other state-owned enterprise, Danel, SA, Eskom, have they had inquiries? Have they actually removed anyone? Have they done anything? And yet they just hand out bailout money left, right and centre. So if that doesn't look like a deliberate strategy to starve the SABC, I don't know what is.
But you know, quite interesting, William, a conversation that I had with you, I imagine 6 weeks ago, and we were assessing the SABC's performance, especially after the elections. And one of the things you said, and many others have said, is just how well the SABC has performed. And some would have said, then the temptation would be to prove the fact that the SABC does not necessarily need money to perform at optimum. So how much is its functionality being impacted by the lack of that bailout?
Well, I mean, you've got people running on a whiff of petrol and an oil rag at the moment, and it's not fair. We've seen already 2 very serious incidents at the SABC. As far as I'm aware, the one person was still receiving medical care after the diesel spill. We know that there are a lot of things and critical infrastructure issues that need to be addressed and fulfilled. So it's not to say that they didn't do an amazing job in the elections with what they had. If they had proper resources, imagine how much better and how many other different things they could have done.
Okay. So there has been the release of reports saying that 28 appointments, irregular appointments, are going to be looked at the SABC, and court action is also being mentioned.
Yep.
How effective is that going to? Is the SABC just wasting time and resources on that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, everyone since the parliamentary inquiry has been saying, don't have people there who were irregularly appointed, they didn't follow process, there are too many managers, this. SABC, from the outside, it says, okay, look at these appointments, they didn't follow process. The findings from the editorial inquiry revealed this, and this. We need to take action following the due process and make sure that these people aren't here. And I think that seems to be a logical thing about how you actually try and clean up an institution. I can't see why anyone isn't saying anything other than, wow, that's a really positive and strong move.
Tell me, how important is at what level and which categories of appointments are being looked at? Just how strategic is it to look at particular departments and levels of management?
So look, what I'm hoping is that they're going to address all levels from the top to all the way down to the bottom, and address any irregular appointments that have been made across the board there. But obviously, with the resources that they have, they're going to be targeting the ones where there are people that are there that are, probably sitting and twiddling their thumbs or trying to do the wrong kinds of things in their daily activities in their job. And I think that it's appropriate that action is taken against them.
So let's look at the next couple of months for the SABC. Obviously going to be very, very critical, especially if funding is outstanding and the SABC has to keep functioning, being above water just in terms of being able to carry out its operations. What would be the next course of action?
So what we have to hope is that government starts to see the message that it's sending now, which is try and restore a public institution and we're not going to give you money, and that they see that that's a bad message to send, and that they say, actually, we'll give you the bailout and these are the terms, and make those public. Let us know what those things are. Then we can, as outside monitors, we can track the SABC's performance, and we will help monitor and make sure that they.
And what would you be looking for specifically there?
Well, I don't know what their requirements are. So until they come out and say, these are the requirements, we don't know. So at the moment, it's a bit like shooting in the dark. All the things that they have said that they have to comply with, to the best of our knowledge, they have complied with. As I said, the strategy documents, those things they seem to be complying with. So
I mean, part of that has been the issue of non-core assets that that Treasury believes that the SABC needs to relieve itself of, just in terms of being financially viable. Where do you start trimming the fat?
Well, that's why as I understand it, they're doing a skills audit. They're making sure that they've got to look at how they can reorganize the SABC and restructure things, because you can't have an institution that was built for 50 years ago trying to operate in an institution that's digital and that has to work for a different world.
Which is what I was going to say. At the same time, you do need to also upgrade your technical capacity if you want to be fighting or competing with amongst the best, not only because it is a regional and international broadcaster. So how do you balance those books in a very depressed environment as well?
Well, it's incredibly difficult, but that's why they need to make sure that they have the right people there to look at it and set out and say, these are the things that we can do and these are the things that we're going to remove. When we talk about non-core assets, what scares me about that is that so very often is, oh, look, we should sell off SABC 1, 2, 3 and whatever, so that we can raise money from that, or let's sell off these semi-public private stations. That's not an answer to getting a stable public broadcaster. The answer to getting a stable public broadcaster is put in the team, let them do their job, let them put their plans out, speak to Parliament, make sure they do all the consultation with workers and employees, and build a way forward. What isn't a solution is to say to them, we're not going to give you your money because it looks like you're actually trying to do something. Which
is what I'm also thinking, that if you're trying to expand your niche markets, if you are, for instance, very well known for your grassroots developmental reporting and you want to spend money on that, and the interpretation from the financiers is that that is not your core mandate, or rather that you are not being competitive enough in what you're doing.
So again, the SABC has got an impossible mandate because it's expected to fill this massive public service mandate and operate as a commercial broadcaster. So is it commercially viable to speak to the poorest of the poor? No. But is it fundamentally essential that the people of South Africa have news and information and programming in a language that they can understand and that they see themselves reflected? Yes, that's fundamentally, almost by definition, the role of the public broadcaster.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Director of Media Monitoring Africa, William.